Aloha, this is Ben Kaneaiakala with Phoenix Rising Addiction Center. Thank you guys for continuing to subscribe to our YouTube channel and continue to follow us as we continue to dig into the steps and how we can apply the steps and use the 12 steps to help address probably the main problem of any human being, and that is our thinking. So the addiction of the thinking. And that's what we've been talking about here. Yeah, we touch on alcoholism, we touch on drug addiction, we touch on sex addiction, gambling, all these different other types of behavioral addictions, and the consequences that a lot of these things are bringing up. And so I want to make sure that we keep that in mind. That what we're truly trying to address, or what I'm truly trying to address here, is the addiction to and of the thinking. The way that we think between our two ears. And just to clarify, our thinking lives in the past and lives in the future. That is the only thing that the mind or the thinking does. So when we're faced with this step 3, where we make a decision or made a decision to turn our thinking and our behaviors over to the care of God as we understood Him. And so when we're faced with this question of making a decision to continue doing it the way I've always done it, or continue to help that I'm getting, or whether I'm in 12-step program or not, or whether I'm in a combination of all kinds of different things just to try and get better, what am I going to do? So the question always arises throughout the day: am I going to do it my way, or am I going to do it this way? Am I going to do it this way, or am I going to do it that way? And as long as that decision process is tied to my thinking, I will always repeat the past and the future when I'm dependent upon the way that I think. So what we're trying to do is change the dependency from ourselves, the me, myself, and I, and change it to a dependency of a higher power, of a God, or a being, or our inner selves, or whatever it might be for you. What we're trying to do is turn our thinking and our actions or our behaviors over to that higher power. Okay? And one of the things and places that those things are found are in the basics of recovery. For anybody that's recovering from anything, whether it be stress, anxiety, depression, addiction, whatever it might be, there is a formula that a lot of self-help or treatment centers or mental health programs or whatever it might be use, and it's a common foundational practice that has to be implemented or can be implemented in the things that we need to do in order to continually make that decision to turn my thinking and my actions over to this higher power. And those things I've been talking about in some other videos, and hopefully you should have an idea of what those things are. But what I wanted to do was continue reading in step 3. And we are on page 36, and we've been talking about this whole thing of dependence, independence. So I'm going to read the next paragraph, and it says, let's examine for a moment this idea of dependence at the level of everyday thinking. Yeah. In this era, it is startling to discover how dependent we actually are, and how unconscious of that dependence. Every modern house has electric wiring carrying power and light to its interior. We are delighted with this dependence. Our main hope is that nothing will ever cut off the supply of current. By so accepting our dependence upon this marvel of science, we have found ourselves more independent personally. Because of that dependence, we're actually more independent. Because it's not something that we're worried about. You know what I mean? Because we're relying upon it to happen. So by accepting our dependence upon the marvel of science, we find ourselves more independent personally. Not only are we more independent, we're even more comfortable and secure. Power flows just where we need it, silently and surely. Electricity, that strange energy, so few people understand, meets our simplest daily needs and our most desperate ones too. Ask the polio sufferer confined to an iron lung who depends with complete trust upon a motor to keep the breath of life in him. So it's so funny how we are so dependent upon electricity to keep our home moving and going and alive. And how we don't really even think about it. So when we're looking at dependency and we're looking at independency and we're looking up and if I'm dependent upon this higher power, how is that going to make me more independent? Just like in the last paragraph we are reading, the more dependent we become upon a power greater than ourselves, or the basics of the program, or all of it, the more independent we actually become. The more free we actually are. The more joy we feel. The more peace, love, and joy we feel. True peace, love, and joy. Not the ones of the world and we find in materialism or anything outside people relationships. We're always looking for something to fill the hole in the donut, as we were talking about in part 3. So it's a hard concept to understand and to make a decision about or to turn over when we're in the midst of stuff. And that's why it's important for us to continue this practice when we're not faced with a lot of turmoil or trouble or problems that are going on. That we're actually practicing this dependence, practicing these resources that we have in our recoveries, and making them a part of what we do, to make it a design for living, so that we don't have to continually create pain and suffering, both internally for myself, and if we are creating internal pain and suffering, it's then affecting external, our families, our friends, our jobs, there is always, when there is internal conflict of the ego, there is always external conflict that is happening. So it's really important to make sure that we bring that home, and be open minded, and to be willing to continue to look, to become aware. And that process is such a great process, and uh, it's been part of my practice, and something that I've come to make as part of what I do, in my own recovery. Yeah. So I hope, as we continue to talk about this, that or this type of dependency on a higher power and true independence, and using like electricity, in the next paragraph on page 37, it goes on into something totally different, and it reads, but the moment our mental or emotional independence is in question, how differently we behave, how persistently we claim the right to decide all by ourselves just what we shall think and just how we shall act. Right? So when we look at, when we're being challenged, or we're being pointed out stuff or whatever, how we want to protect our ego, ourself, our mental or emotional independence is in question, how differently we behave, how persistently we claim the right to decide by ourselves what we should do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. You know what I mean? And that is so egoic, And the only thing that comes out of that is just more pain and suffering. So he says, "Oh yes, we'll weigh the pros and cons of every problem. We'll listen politely to those who would advise us, but all the decisions are ours alone." So in spite of all the help we're getting or talking to people, at the end of it all, because I'm so dependent upon me, myself, and I, that I'm the one that's going to truly make the final call and decision. So nobody is going to meddle with my personal independence, but it's all connected. You know what I mean? Everything is connected. It's not separate. We're not separate people. We're one person. And we are certain that our intelligence or intellect or thinking backed by willpower, our own will, can rightly control our inner lives and guarantee us success in the world we live in. That's more of that same insanity that we've continued to live in and to do, that had gotten us to this place that we're in right now, you know. And that's what they're identifying, us playing God, you know. And how well has that actually worked? You know, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be asking for help, we wouldn't be looking for help, we wouldn't be going to a doctor, we wouldn't be going to a psychologist, we wouldn't be going to treatment, we wouldn't be going to whoever that we're going to. If things were so good, uh, we wouldn't be reaching out for help, or we wouldn't be going through the challenges and the difficulties that we're going through. But it doesn't work. Our will, our thinking, no matter what it is, it just continues to bring more pain and suffering for ourselves internally. So all we have to do is just take a look in the mirror and see how well we've really done, and that should be the acid test enough. Is to just look at the pain and suffering that we've continued to create in our own lives, and how that is not just impacting us but impacting other people. So I hope this was helpful as we go into part 4. This is part 4 of step 3, and I'm gonna go into part 5 and part 6 as we continue to talk about this step. So I hope this was helpful. Please continue to follow us on YouTube and any of our social media platforms. If there's any suggestions or comments or things, please leave them, and I'll respond to the best of my ability. All right. I hope you guys are having a great day. Mahalo.